Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff, and today we have a very exciting review. We're taking a look at the TRM Neutron 2. I'm really excited about this review. Before we get started on the actual review, I do want to talk about how I got this knife. If you haven't seen the unboxing, this will fill you in. So, a couple months back, I got an email from TRM asking me if I would like to check out some of their products. And this completely blew my mind because TRM is a brand that I've been aware of for a long time and always been interested in, but they're a little bit difficult to get and they've always been kind of out of my price range. And so to have this email saying, hey, we've seen your channel, we like what you do, we'd like to send you something, it was absolutely mind-blowing. And I've just so much gratitude towards the people over there at TRM. This was a really neat thing for them to do. And because of that, I am going to be giving this knife away for my 2,000 subscriber giveaway. So I haven't even made, by the time this video comes out, I have not posted the announcement for that giveaway. So sneak peek for those of you that watch the review. But yeah, that will be coming up. I'll probably post the announcement video before the end of the year. And then we'll probably do the drawing for the winners towards the beginning of 2024. But yeah, that's how we got this knife. Thank you so much to TRM. It's really cool of them to do stuff like this, to interact with the community in this way, and especially to interact with a channel like mine that's, pretty small compared to some of the other big fish out there in the EDC world. And I'm really blessed to have had this opportunity. So wanted to give that little shout out. Also, trying a little bit of a different background here on these Smoky Mountain Knife Work magazines. The reflective surface of my desk just wreaks havoc on the video equipment. But enough business. Let's go ahead and get this review off and running. Start off with our blade length measurement. Sharpened edge is coming in here just a hair under 3 inches. If you measure all the way back to the scales, the blade is about, right in that 3 1/4 range, approaching that. So definitely not a large knife by any metric. All right, let's further illustrate that with our size comparisons. Here's our Rat 1, and here's our Rat 2. And what do you know? I actually got them right this time. Normally I mix them up. Look, I'm learning. So yeah, pretty similar in overall length to the Rat 2, but a little bit taller. Let's go ahead and bring out our Civivis, starting with the Praxis and our Elementum. Again, very similar in size to our smaller comparison knife here. Let's bring out our USA made comparisons, which are very fitting today because this is a made in the USA knife. There's our Spyderco PM2, and there's our Benchmade Bug Out. All right, and to close up comparisons today, I want to compare it against the CJRB Pyrite. This is a regular size Pyrite because these are two knives I've been carrying a lot this year, and they do kind of remind me of each other in some ways. And then let's also compare against another USA made knife, one of the few in my collection. This is a Hogue Deca. I need to get more USA made knives in my collection, guys. It's sad. I need more representation of the great country of America. But yeah, what are we looking at here for materials? Our blade here, very nice drop point blade, is 20 CV steel. We have a titanium pocket clip, titanium liners, and micarta scales. And we'll talk more about all of those here in a little bit. For now, let's go and do some cutting. Hey guys, today is really special. Not only are we doing the review cutting for a very cool knife, we're doing it out here at White Sands National Park. And because this is such a special and awesome place, I'm going to take a little bit of time to nerd out on you guys. Feel free to skip this if you're not interested, but I think this is pretty cool. So White Sands was originally designated a national monument back in the 1930s by President Hoover. And there's still signs around the park calling it a national monument. A lot of people still refer to it as a national monument because it wasn't until 2019 that it was redesignated a national park by President Trump. What's the difference between a national monument and a national park? I'm glad you asked. A national monument is set up to protect kind of one specific thing. It could be an item of historical or natural significance, but it's just kind of that one thing. A national park is more encompassing. It protects a wide variety of mostly natural resources, right? Most national parks are focused around protecting environments of a certain area. And so here in White Sands, not only is the sand itself, this white gypsum sand, which we will be talking about, not only is this a very interesting and unique feature that needs to be protected, but also this is a very unique ecosystem here in White Sands. There are thousands of species of plants and animals out here, and hundreds of them can only be found in this park, which is really, really awesome. And so because of all of those factors, this has been redesignated a park. It also has a lot of, mineralogical value and stuff, which we'll talk about right now. So the sands you see here are gypsum sand dunes. And gypsum is an evaporite mineral. And the dune field here has only been around for about 10,000 years, but the gypsum itself is about 250 million years old. And here's how that works. This gypsum all came from an ancient ocean. People often talk about oceans rising and receding. We call this transgression and regression. But sometimes people forget too that not only do ocean levels rise and fall, land rises and falls, right? So way back in the Permian period, 250 million years ago, this part of the North American continent was a low area. And the oceans were higher back then. There was no ice in the poles. And so the water was flowing up and over the land. And we had the large ocean here. Now, things started to change. The ocean started to recede. The land started to rise up. And when the ocean started to leave and start to dry up, it left behind a bunch of evaporites. And that's how this gypsum got here. And so eventually that gypsum kind of got trapped in rock layers, specifically things like the Yeso limestone formation that is prominent in this area. And it stayed there for a long, long time. And it got buried and got uplifted and buried. And the most recent uplift was during the Rio Grande Rift. I've talked about the rift a lot on this channel. It's a very important feature in New Mexico. But basically, it's an area of extension where the North American continent is kind of trying to pull apart. So you have the crust thinning, and as things are pulling apart, you have some areas dropping down and some areas popping up. One of the areas that dropped down is the Tularosa Basin. And it formed this big low-lying area between the San Andres Mountains, which you can actually see maybe just barely in the peaks behind me right there. You see that big bumpy one? That's Salinas Peak, that's the San Andres. And the Sacramento Mountains, which are these ones over here. And part of the units that got lifted up was the Yeso Formation, which actually forms a lot of the layers in the Sacramentos. You can see a lot of these limestones at the top of the San Andres out here. And around this same time, well, let me slow down. So these units got uplifted and stuff, and that was happening probably, 15, 20 million years ago, something like that, right? After that, this whole area was kind of a hotspot for a lot of early peoples, right? Early peoples in the Americas were here as far back as 12,000 years ago. We have footprints, a trackway that was discovered here in White Sands just a couple of years ago that has kind of rewritten how we kind of think about how the human story went in North America. But you had mastodon and ground sloths and all kinds of these Cenozoic fauna in here. And then the climate changed. And this used to be kind of a grassy area and with like lakes. Climate changed and we started getting a little bit hotter. And so what happened is water running through the limestones that held this gypsum in it was dissolving the gypsum. Gypsum's water soluble. And it was flowing into these basins and forming these big lakes. And then when these lakes were drying up, the gypsum was being left behind. The water was turning to steam and it was leaving and it couldn't take the gypsum with it. So the gypsum precipitated out and was deposited here. And that's kind of rough and dirty. Not a whole lot of details, just kind of a quick Cliff Notes version of how these dunes got here. And gypsum sand dunes are a very rare occurrence. And this is the largest gypsum sand dune field on the planet. So very, very cool, very special. It's awesome to be here. I do not get out here enough. I live very close to these dunes, 6 months out of the year, 9 months out of the year. And I don't get out here as often as I'd like. I actually get out to the San Andres a lot more. I do field work out there, which is also beautiful, beautiful country. For those of you that don't know, there's also the White Sands Missile Range here in New Mexico, which is the largest U.S. military base, and they do a lot of testing here. It's where the first atomic bomb was blown up. If you guys have ever watched Oppenheimer or know anything about World War II and the nuclear arms race, that was detonated out here. I've actually been there, seen the bomb. But yeah, so if we go that way, we've got the White Sands Missile Range, the military base. I do research out in the San Andres, actually close to that Salinas that I was just pointing out. And I wish I could show you guys pictures and stuff from out there because it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Some rugged, rugged country. But the Army's a little bit strict on what we can and can't share from out there. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. You might actually hear there's a jet going over doing some testing. But speaking of testing, let's go ahead and talk about this knife. Just had to nerd out about this stuff because, you know, I'm a geologist. I love this kind of stuff. So, and I will be kicking my boots off and going running in the sand here in just a minute. So, speaking of testing, we're going to be testing our TRM Neutron 2. This is a really cool knife. I've been carrying the heck out of this. This might be my one of my most carried this year. So let's go ahead and start the action. This is running on phosphor bronze washers. Nice and poppy. Now, it did take a little bit of breaking in to get to that kind of swinging shut, but I'll be honest with you guys, this is the type of washer action that I love. This is one of my favorite kinds of action. Oh. Yeah. Hear how poppy that is? And it's a feeling that I'm not sure how to describe. Unlike bearings, you know, it's not like that swinging out kind of smoothness, but it's just consistent and glassy. I love it. If you're someone who likes washer actions, you will probably love it too. Very poppy coming out of there. And yeah, it'll glide shut for you after it breaks in a little bit. I love it. Ergonomics. This is a very thin knife. At first I thought that this pocket clip was going to cause issues, but I'm happy to report that it does not. You do have a little bit of a kind of half choil here that you can choke up into. Overall, the ergonomics are very, very comfortable. These scales are a little bit contoured. Speaking of scales, you can put basically any kind of scale you want on this knife. There are tons of aftermarket scales. TRM makes scales for these things, so your ergonomics are pretty customizable. As for these ones here, I think they're absolutely fine. This is not something that I would want to be breaking down cardboard for long periods of time with. This is not something I would want to be working wood with because it is thin. But for an EDC knife and stuff, it's perfectly fine. I enjoy it quite a bit. So, no problems there. All right, let's go ahead and grab our review cutting materials. One of the interesting things about doing review cutting and stuff in populated like areas is, you know, you run into people. So I ran into this little Hispanic family came and pulled up next to me. They were nice, had this big black dog named Junior. But I can see I'm not the only person who had the idea to come out here and film something. A little bit ago, maybe I caught on anyways, maybe kind of try to take a sneaky video, put up here if I can. I think some lady came out here to film OnlyFans stuff. They pull up in this real nice SUV, and she gets out, booty shorts, thigh-high black high-heel boots, starts doing pictures. Anyways, it's a beautiful place for pictures, so can't say I blame her. But I just remembered, I forgot to show you guys how this thing carries in the pocket. There's the clip. Not reversible right now, but the scales are tapped for reversible clips, or the liners are, so you just have to get the scales drilled. Let's go ahead and tilt down. And yes, I am barefoot. I apologize. And there you go. The clip works really well. The knife itself is very slim, very lightweight. It carries like nothing. And yeah, This clip does climb over pants really well, and you can see how much room you have under there, so you are not going to get it stuck. All right, now let's go ahead and cut some stuff. So, you guys know, serious talk for a second. If you guys have been watching this channel for a while, you know that I have a very anti-litter stance. I'm very staunchly against littering, and especially in a place like this right now, pick up trash, right? You got to pick up your trash. I'm going to be making sure I pick up all the trash I have right here. Don't want to leave anything out here. And if you come out to your beautiful national parks and monuments, don't be that guy that leaves trash, okay? Not to get preachy, but don't be that guy. All right, here we go. I know you guys, I know none of you would ever do that. You guys are all amazing, but here we go. Let's do our cardboard slicing. Very thin 20 CV blade. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Oh gosh, guys, I cannot tell you how much I hate this table. I can't wait till I have my truck back. So very nice, slicey drop point blade, as you saw there. You can get to that tip very easily for your utility cuts. This thing just breezes through anything and everything. Just super slicey, super slicey. No complaints whatsoever. The shirt has come off. All right, so at this point, Editing Gideon is going to cut in a little bit and talk about, give a little more context to what's going on here. So yes, there was a woman there at White Sands. She had her photographer with her. When she first pulled up, she was just walking around, like, kind of taking some selfies and stuff, and she was in, you know, like I said, the booty shorts and the thigh-high leather boots and high heels. And I was like, okay, a little bit weird. But then I noticed she also had a cameraman with her. And so, yeah, they set up, and while I was working on filming my portion of the video, they were, I don't know, 100 yards, 150 yards away from me, doing a separate shoot that involved significantly less clothing than my shoot did. So, so keep that in mind as you watch the rest of this. That is going on in my line of sight while I'm trying to do my review cutting. So enjoy. I should also say, not trying to throw any shade at that lady. I mean, come on. You gotta do what you gotta do to make money. If I get away with making money that way, you better believe I would be. But yeah, it was just a little bit awkward for me to be there. So, you know, I figured I'd tell you guys a story because it's kind of funny. Getting a little free show while I do review cutting here. All right, we're gonna make sure to keep the camera this way at all times so I don't get demonetized. All right. Gosh. Do the rope pull, shall we? Very easy, very easy. So this knife has a very thin blade stock. It doesn't necessarily have a super thin edge though. It's not a thick edge, but it's a robust edge, I would say. So going through, you know, resistant mediums like this is no problem. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. Oh, yep, there goes a big old jet out of Holloman. Yeah, no problem whatsoever on our rope. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Right. Let's do our this thing. Whoops. Caught the choil there, that was my fault. Let's go again. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Guys, that was effortless. That thing cut through like no one's business. That one was the one where I got caught in the choil. Look at that. Look at that. That's what we love to see. That is super thin. Felt very, very nice all the way through. I love it. All right, we had another interruption. Sorry about that. So that's gonna clear things up. I don't have my board to throw knives into anymore, so that sucks. But yeah, this thing performed amazingly. No complaints whatsoever. That's what I like to see. Let's go ahead and get back to the table. Hey guys, it's Editing Gideon, and something I forgot to mention is that I really appreciate the name of the Neutron and kind of the naming scheme that TRM uses for all their stuff. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, but I'm a little bit of a nerd myself, and so having knives named things like the Atom and the Neutron, it appeals to me. I like it a lot. It's very fun. Alrighty, now that we're back from that very exciting review cutting session, let's go ahead and talk about what I'm liking and not liking about this knife. Oh my goodness, look at all the rock dust on my table. There's a lot of rocks on my table. So, number one, made in the USA. I love that. Focus up, camera. Thank you. Being a citizen of this great country myself, it's always great to represent the home team. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the review, I don't have nearly as many USA-made knives as I would like, but every single one I do have, I'm happy to have, and I like them. So, yeah, you know, rooting for the home team, right? As Nick Shabazz would say, which, by the way, Nick Shabazz is where I first found out about TRM. I remember watching a lot of his videos and being like, wow, those knives look really, really good, because he's kind of a big fan of TRM. Next thing I like, the look of this knife is very plain in some ways, but also kind of reminds me of a race car, right? It looks very, very aerodynamic. It's sleek and it's pokey, but it also has kind of a minimalist / outdoorsy look. You know, I could see this knife comfortably living in the pocket of a hipster in LA, but also I could see this being in my grandpa's pocket out on the ranch. So it's really cool design language where it kind of crosses all boundaries. It kind of exists in multiple worlds, and I think that's really, really nice. All right, speaking of some more details that make this knife really nice, the stonewash on this blade is really excellent. You guys know I love a good stonewash, and this is a very good stonewash. Stonewash finishes are amazing, and as much as I've used this knife, it has hidden the usage marks beautifully. That's one of the great things about stonewash is the more you use the knife, the better it looks in some ways. And especially since I'm going to be giving this one away, it's really nice to kind of hide some of those love marks. Something else about the blade that I really like is how they have etched their Three Rivers. Focus up here, camera. Their Three Rivers logo into the blade. It's very, very cool. I like that. It doesn't really add anything. In fact, some people could probably argue that would be a place for moisture to collect and, be a corrosion hotspot. I haven't had that problem, but I think it's just really cool. It's different, makes the knife stand out. Next thing, let's talk about the scales. So the micarta scales on this one are pretty nice. I will say through all the carry I've done with this knife, it's picked up some blue from my blue jeans. But amazing thing about TRM is that they make it very easy to swap these scales. So all you have to do is take out these two screws and you can just take the scales off without having to disassemble the entire knife, which is pretty awesome. And it makes it so that this knife is supremely customizable. TRM makes a lot of scales that you can put on this knife, but there's also tons and tons of aftermarket scales that you can easily fit to your knife. So whatever your style is, you can customize the knife to be that way. And that can also help with customizing ergonomics a little bit. You want your knife to be fatter, you want it to be thinner, stuff like that. So I think that's really, really cool. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about some more of the utility factors. So number one, the access to the lock bar is beautiful. Not only do they give you a nice cutout, the texture on the lock bar is really nice, and this little cutout here, it's not just a cutout that exposes the lock bar, it's kind of got this shelf on it that kind of guides your thumb into the lock bar. It just feels very comfortable and it's just second nature, right? I appreciated using this so much because it was just so easy to get it out, use it, and then get it back in the pocket. And it wasn't flashy or anything either. With a lot of knives like button locks or something, take it out, and even if I slow roll or something, sometimes if you do that fast close like that, if you're in an area where there's people who, maybe aren't knife people, they can give you some weird looks. This was very nice because it's so elegant. You can slow roll it open and then very easily but smoothly close it one-handed. So that may not be something that matters to a whole lot of people, but for me, that is really important. As you guys know, I'm a student and I work in academia. I work at a museum. And so oftentimes I'm in places that are pretty public and stuff. And if I have to use my knife, I don't want it to be something that's going to be scary or drawing attention to me. Or, I really don't want to be disrespectful to people around me is kind of the main. That's kind of the bottom line. All right. Speaking of the AES Lock Bar and stuff, the action on this is fantastic. We talked about this during the cutting footage, but I absolutely love this kind of washer action. The pop of this detent, whoops, really, really nice. You can reverse flick it, and then it has broken in beautifully, just beautifully. And I love that this knife is on washers and not bearings. This was a knife that I carried pretty much everywhere. I made a couple of videos about this, but this was a knife that I could carry in my pocket at work all day at the museum and stuff. And it was lightweight and it was thin and it was slicey. It was a great EDC knife for that. But then if I was going out in the field the next day, I was going to go out and be in the, spend a couple of days in the wilderness looking at rocks and stuff. I could take this knife too. This was a great pocket knife to have around camp because I wasn't worried about dust and grime, messing it up or anything. Obviously, it's a very functional knife, so it was very useful for me in those situations. But yeah, I just really, really enjoyed this knife. I took it everywhere with me. I've had this thing, again, like I said, to school, to work. It's been in my pocket. It's been in my pocket while I've been at the bottom of mines, at the top of mountains, camping. It's just a really dang good knife. Now, of course, not a hard use knife. When I was in the field and doing my camping and stuff, I had a fixed blade for that. And honestly, this was an excellent companion piece to a fixed blade, You have a nice, big, robust fixed blade for all your bigger tasks, and you've got this for all your smaller around the camp tasks. Really, really great combo. And speaking of accomplishing tasks, this blade is excellent. This is, oh my gosh, this is a blade par excellence. This thing is just super functional. So you've got some straight, you've got a little bit of belly. The tip drops down pretty dramatically. Oh my goodness, pretty dramatically. This is a very droppy drop point. So you can do your utility cuts. You can do slices really well. And look how thin this blade is. Look how thin. That is gorgeous. Flat grind, pretty much a full flat grind. The edge itself, we're not looking at anything that's like 12, 13 thousandths behind the edge. It's not like razor thin. But the fact that the blade is so thin and that the geometry is consistent from spine to edge makes this thing slice beautifully. I've said this before on the channel. I love hollow grinds and stuff. But a flat grind on a fairly broad blade like this, I think, is the most well-rounded EDC grind you can get. Because, yeah, this thing is super slicey, but that edge has enough stability that if I have to crunch down through a tougher material, it can handle it no problem. And so I think that makes this just kind of the perfect EDC knife, because an EDC knife is a knife that's not specialized, right? An EDC knife is a knife that needs to be ready to perform when you've got it in your pocket. And who knows what you're going to encounter throughout your day, right? I've cut string, food, cardboard, zip ties with this knife, and it has handled them all really well. If we're going hunting, you want to bring a hunting knife. It's a specialized knife for skinning that animal out, right? Bushcraft knives, specialized for that. Of course, you can shove these knives into different uses, but an EDC knife, that's a knife that you have with you 24/7. And it should be able to handle a wide variety of things, right? You don't want to be, for example, I wouldn't carry a hawkbill as my EDC knife because I think that's more of a specialized blade shape. And I'm not sure I would run into very many tasks through my day-to-day that would require that blade shape. Now, I have used hawkbills. Growing up, my mom always had a garden and stuff, and we always used hawkbills. and pruning knives and things like that in the garden, but you know, that's not what I want for an EDC knife. And so this, perfect blade shape, perfect grind, it's just excellent. And speaking of the blade, the 20 CV on this knife has held up beautifully. Beautifully. This thing has been, I have stropped it and honed it a couple of times, but I have not had to do a full sharpening. And let's grab a little piece of paper here. I haven't touched up the edge in a little bit. It could probably use a touch up. Yeah, there's a couple of spots where it's, oh my goodness, but look at that. So definitely it's not like as sharp as it was out of the box, but again, all I've been doing with this thing is stropping and honing it on a ceramic rod, and I've been using the heck out of this thing, so I'm very, very impressed with the 20 CV. It's held up really, really well. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the ergonomics. The ergonomics are great. The knife is wide in this dimension, so that helps to fill out your hand. You have kind of a half choil here, so you can choke up on the blade. The knife is thin, but because it's wide in this dimension, again, I don't have many problems with it in the hand. Now, this is not a knife that I'd want to be, you know, bearing down on going through wood and stuff because it is thin. But for EDC and stuff, these ergonomics are pretty much perfect. Pretty much perfect. I don't really have any complaints at all. The clip I thought was going to be an issue, but it's not. It actually works fine. Let's talk about that clip. So at first I thought this was an ugly clip. I was like, wow, look how high that is. That's going to bother me in the hand. It's going to dig into my hand. And for me, it doesn't dig into my hand. I can feel the clip, but it's not a hot spot. And I think that's because the clip is so wide. It gives you wider surface area, more contact, and so it's not digging in as much. In and out of the pocket, this clip works really, really nicely. It holds the knife in your pocket very well. It's a titanium clip, and you know, these folded titanium clips are really nice. Actually, let me double check myself. Yeah, it is titanium. Okay. Just had to make sure that I wasn't lying to you guys. But yeah, I thought it was an excellent clip. And speaking of the clip, this is a technically reversible clip. If we open up the knife here and we look inside, you can see that the other scale is drilled for a lefty clip, or the other liner is drilled for a lefty clip, but these scales do not have the holes. So you can either drill the holes yourself or get yourself some scales that have the lefty holes, and the liner's already drilled for it, so you're good to go. So I really, really appreciate that. Also, this is a very customizable clip. They have that 3-hole pattern, very similar to like a Benchmade. So I think you're going to be able to find a lot of aftermarket clips that work on this knife. A lot of stuff that's made for Benchmades and Spydercos will probably fit that very, very well. So there we go. I think that's all the positives. It's hard to say because there are so many. Oh, one thing, you know, you do have these 3 standoffs here. I like that. It gives the knife a little bit of, I mean, this is a very solid knife. For being as thin as it is, this is a very, very solid feeling knife. And I really, really like that. And let's just take a minute to appreciate some of the build quality stuff. Kind of like how parts of the liner stick up right there. Also kind of helps with the structure. You can see the scales are contoured. One thing I will mention is when I first got the knife, it wasn't centered, but that like wore in pretty quick, and it might be a little bit off now, but I really don't care. I don't really care about that. Okay, let's go ahead and get to some negatives. I'll be honest, really the only negative I can find is that the thumb studs could be better. I know people complain about them being sharp, and yeah, I can feel them, especially on the reverse flick, being a little bit sharp. For the thumb flick, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But you know, I know a lot of people that put like the little O-rings in the thumb studs to kind of soften them up. One thing I did notice about the thumb studs though is there was a couple times I pulled the knife out of my pocket and the thumb stud would get caught on my pants and open the blade. And this didn't happen often, but it happened enough that I noticed. And I think it happened probably 2 or 3 times. And so, yeah, you know, definitely something worth pointing out. All right, let's go ahead and go to my final conclusions. Yeah, that's it. That's what I don't like. Final conclusions. This knife is pricey, right? These are pricey knives. These are $230 to $260, and they're a little bit hard to get. Is it worth it? Yes. Yes, it absolutely is. So what's interesting about this knife to me is that most of these kind of small USA makers, focus on big overbuilt knives. You think about your Hinderers, your Striders, your Medfords, things like that. USA knife is kind of synonymous with overbuilt, right? Heck, even things like Spyderco, right? It can be considered overbuilt. And Benchmade also has a lot of knives that are kind of overbuilt and tough. I would not consider the Bug Out to be one of those, but Benchmade kind of has a lot of knives that they kind of focus on toughness. This is different. This is a knife that's a lightweight EDC knife. It's not trying to be anything. It's not a tactical knife. It's not a combat knife. It's not a hard use knife. It's just a pocket knife. And that's beautiful. And to me, this is the perfect evolution of a simple pen knife to the modern age, right? This is everything a pocket knife ever set out to be. It's just a blade that's convenient, that can cut things. And obviously, you guys know me. I love my big, overbuilt folding knives, and I use them, and I use them hard. But at the same time, it's really nice to have knives like this, and especially, again, I'm not always on the ranch. I'm not always out in the field. I'm in a museum, I'm at school, things like this, and it's nice to have a knife that's capable and beautiful, but also appropriate to that environment. And this is definitely a knife that fits that bill. It's lightweight, and it's a wonderful, wonderful knife. Probably one of the best EDC knives I've ever carried. And I said in several videos, this is probably my ideal EDC. This is, in my mind, the perfect EDC knife. So yes, they're difficult to get. Yes, they're a little bit expensive, but good golly gracious, are they worth it? So there we go. Thank you again to TRM for sending this over. I really, really enjoyed carrying this knife, really enjoyed using this knife, made some beautiful memories with this knife, and now I'm excited to pass it on to one of you. Again, details on that giveaway will be coming up in the next few weeks or so. But there we go. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. And since it's getting close to the holidays, Merry Christmas.